And a very good morning to you. How are you this glorious Sunday morning, the 1st of July 2018? I hope you're well. Hope you've had a good weekend so far. I say so far. Sunday is the beginning of a new week, isn't it, really, technically? But I hope you're in good form and fine fettle. And thanks for choosing to join me this AM for Sunday View. You know, I look at the logistics for the programme, the statistics, the login details, every once in a while to keep an eye on the numbers. But I don't often do it just before I go live. But I'm kind of glad I did this morning. I'm looking at basically areas where people are listening to the programme this morning. We have listeners in San Antonio, in Texas, in Italy, in Estonia, Munster, in Germany, Bray, in Ireland, of course, Portugal, France. It's absolutely incredible, really. And good old Huddersfield, Australia as well, Sweden. I'm scrolling up the list there. Phenomenal thing, that. Makes me happy, that. Thanks for tuning into the Richie Allen Show, Sunday View, live on Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, TuneIn Radio and triggerwarning.tv. Do you know, there's not much of a silly season. There's some really interesting things for you and I to get into this AM. So let's do that then. Tweet me right now with any comments on @Richie Allen Show. That's Twitter handle @Richie Allen Show.
Asking the questions mainstream journalists will never ask. This is your Richie Allen Show on richieallen.co.uk, Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, and triggerwarning.tv.
It's lovely to see that, where people are tuning in from all around the world. Not for vanity reasons, it's just nice to know that somebody is listening. Welcome to Sunday View then. Loads to tell you. All the windows in the studio open, by the way.
It's the Richie Allen Show, broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
And I've told Caroline, my partner in crime, if anybody turns on a lawnmower or a strimmer, she's to go out there and kick the living shit out of them. I didn't say that. We might be distracted. If so, we'll just have to live with it, because the temperatures are thus that I can't sit in this sweatbox and do what I need to do. So there you go. Right, Sunday View then. Scorcher again. It's already 25. Temperature's going to get to about 31 in this city this afternoon. In fact, we're getting the best of it today, according to the weathermen and women. Diversity is important. We'll talk a bit about diversity a bit later on. A little bit hungover as well, to tell you the truth. I've had more than I should have had yesterday. I had a few, and it's not ideal in the sun either, is it? So I was a little bit sore when I got out of the bed this morning. But anyway, you don't want to hear that, do you? Let's crack on then. And we're going to start today with the Sunday Express. The headline is 2 words. It's big, it's bold. Healthcare revolution is the headline on the Sunday Express. Lucy Johnston is the journalist who has written that the NHS is on the brink of a healthcare revolution, which will transform millions of lives through technology. And that's according to the Health Innovation Chief for the UK. So she writes that the service prepares to celebrate its 70th anniversary next week. Professor Tony Young predicted a glowing future for the NHS, saying it is at the forefront of healthcare innovation. This is the most exciting time in medicine I have ever known. Now, among the advances, and this is where your ears prick up, and we take special interest in this, among the advances, writes Lucy Johnston, are DNA smartcards to store genetic data. What? Sensors in phones which measure blood flow. Lovely. And heartbeat, and sensors in phones which raise the alarm at the first sign of irregularities, to be enabled by applications to warn allergy sufferers when they are in danger. Your phone will do everything soon. Mobile breast screening units are already being trialled, and medicines are expected to be delivered by drone. They're going to send you your prescription by drone. Professor Young, the National Clinical Director for Innovation, predicted that artificial intelligence and high-tech advances would lead to a fundamental shift in health systems. This would mean, he said, the NHS would move from a service which deals with illness when it occurs to one which prevents disease. We want to use technology to help us move from an intermittent and reactive healthcare system where we wait for people to develop symptoms to one in which we use technology to prevent disease happening in the first place and gather information about patients to make decisions about current health problems in real time. Some of these advances, dear listener, are creepy. We already heard DNA smartcards record, would record all NHS patients' genetic data, sharing it with big healthcare providers, allowing drugs to be prescribed safely and effectively. Also maybe, just maybe, also providing a blueprint of how easy it would be to kill Mrs. Smith as opposed to Mr. Johnson. If you wanted to start killing people, you know what I mean? But maybe I'm just being paranoid. They are being trialled on 2,000 people, these DNA smart cards, and they will be offered widely within the next 2 years. Smartphone apps using satellite data to give information on personalised environmental risks. Unbelievable. Air quality data, irregular heart rhythm detectors in phones. 6,000 of those devices have already begun being handed out to GP practices for those at risk. So this is all happening right now. Dementia tracking slippers. GPS soles being trialled in Dorset in slippers to help reduce hospital admissions. So your grandmother or your granddad or your mum or your dad with dementia, give them dementia tracking slippers. NASA inspired gyroscopes in a wearable monitor that help measure elderly people's gait, enabling physiotherapists to prescribe a personalised exercise program to reduce the risk of falls. Wow. Virtual reality apps. Technology using drones, delivering equipment to people. Now, the Labour Party leader, Jeremy Corbyn, speaking about the health service, staying on the... I'm not going to analyse what you just heard there. This has been predicted for years and years and years as to where it's all going to end up. On the health service in general, the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn spoke to Sky News presenter Sophie Ridge earlier, and they spoke about the £20 billion Theresa May has promised to the NHS and Labour's own plans for the health service. Worth a listen.
Health is about mental health, it is about social care, it is about stress, it is about environmental and public health, and that I want to see the NHS properly funded. So are you saying that austerity could cost lives, effectively? Austerity does cost lives, no question about that, and the health inequalities in Britain are massive. Theresa May's given the NHS a £20 billion birthday present, 3.4% on average over 5 years. What exactly are you promising? What we said in the election was we'd put far more money in straight away. Nothing that she has promised actually means any money this year. There's no money for mental health, there's no money for social care, and it's only 0.1% above what the IFS says is necessary to stand still. So my understanding is you're promising 5% more in the first year, but over 5 years, that's actually less than the Conservative Party, because you're only talking about the first year, they're talking about 5 years, aren't they? We said we'd put in 5% the first year to deal with the immediate crisis, particularly in hospital waiting lists and in social care. So what happens after that then? We would continue increasing at the necessary rate, and it would be higher than that.
And Corbyn will borrow and borrow and borrow and raise income taxes to pay for that. Because in the words of Elton John, that's the circle of life. That's how it goes. That's the essence of boom to bust and austerity. Don't call it the circle of life, I suppose you could call it the ring of the death economy. Anyway, speaking of health, the NHS has drawn up a number of common procedures that it wants to phase out. Prick up your ears, dear listener. It wants to phase out common operations and certain treatments. And according to the BBC, I'm going to read this for you now. According to the BBC, tonsils removal, breast reductions and snoring surgery will be offered to far fewer patients from next year under plans being drawn up by NHS England. Officials are to discuss proposals to stop or reduce 17 routine procedures deemed to be ineffective or risky. The treatment will be offered only if it is judged to be of compelling benefit and there are no alternatives. NHS England said the move would affect about 100,000 people every year but would free up an estimated £200 million. Not everybody thinks it's a good idea. The British Society for the Surgery of the Hand said cutting back on certain procedures would cost the economy more, as people would be unable to work without surgery. Patients at risk of serious harm from their condition will continue to be offered treatment. This follows reviews last year to save £190 million from supplying over-the-counter medications and treatments described as low value. Now, the NHS chief executive is a guy called Simon Stevens. He was on the Andrew Marr show on BBC television this morning. Andrew Marr asked him about this. Listen up.
This week you've released a whole series of operations that the NHS will no longer offer, at least routinely. And many of them are sort of things like pinning back Andrew Marr's ears and so forth. And you can understand why the NHS would not want to spend money on doing that. But some of them are quite serious. Carpal tunnel syndrome, for instance, which is a really unpleasant and debilitating problem of the hand. You're no longer going to offer an operation for that. Can you understand why somebody with carpal tunnel syndrome, for instance, sees this £20 billion going into the NHS and thinks, but I'm not going to get my operation, and is quite hacked off?
Well, these are proposals that have been drawn up by doctors and are now going to be consulted on. But the reason that these suggestions have been made is because there are now usually better treatments or alternative treatments, or these treatments are deemed not to work terribly well. If an individual doctor thinks that an individual patient would, however, benefit, they will still be able to provide that service.
So people who read through this list shouldn't be too worried. For instance, I mean, another very distressing thing can be excessive menstrual bleeding, and the NHS used to offer hysterectomies for that, and according to the list, will no longer do so.
Well, we have the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges, the top medical experts in the country, alongside NICE, which looks at the medical evidence of what conditions benefit from which treatments, and this is the list that they have come up with. As I say, we will be consulting on it, and then on the basis of that making some decisions.
Now, NICE is the National Institute for Healthcare and Excellence. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into this group, NICE, that he mentioned, right? Because if you think about it, that policy of cutting these procedures, no pun intended, these surgeries, but removing them, has privatisation written all over it, doesn't it? Doesn't it, really? Who or what is really behind that policy? I would suggest the healthcare companies who will come in to offer those very services, right? Can't get your carpal tunnel syndrome operation on the NHS? Well, we'll do it. We'll do it. We'll take government money and we'll do it. And Andrew Marr, God love him, he's a shit interviewer because he never made that connection. He never asked Simon Stevens, well, aren't you just opening the door for companies to come in to do those operations? In fact, Marr asked him a follow-up question saying, will we see more of this in the coming years? And of course, Simon Stevens wouldn't answer that. Will we see more operations taken away? Stevens wouldn't say anything other than saying, you know, that everything is subject to an ongoing review, dear boy. Privatisation written all over it. But Marr did manage to ask him one very good question. This is a good question.
And it's 70 years old and everybody loves it. Can I ask you one question? Why is it that our cancer survival rates are so poor compared to other comparative countries?
Because we get diagnosed too late. And so the most important thing over the next 5 years is going to be early diagnosis, particularly for bowel cancer and for lung cancer. So in the case of lung cancer, for example, you're going to start seeing CT scanners parked in supermarket car parks. We started that in Manchester, and we found that whereas previously only 1 in 5 people in Manchester were getting their lung cancer diagnosed early, when we were doing it in the supermarket car parks, it was 2/3. And in the case of bowel cancer, people are going to start getting new kit through their letterbox soon, and we would ask them to actually mail them back to us. I've got this little test here, which is like a little dipstick. You dip it into your poo.
We won't do it live on air.
We won't do it live on air, Andrew, but you dip it into your poo, you mail it back to the NHS, and this saves lives. Because if we pick up bowel cancer early, 95% of people survive.
Yeah, what a load of bollocks that is. Why do we have such a low cancer survival rate, said Andrew Marr? Because we diagnose it too late, said Simon Stevens, who probably believes that. He's just a front man at the end of the day, isn't he? He's a bean counter, I suppose you'd call him. The reason why there's such a low survival rate is fairly simple. If I dare be dogmatic about it, even though I don't have any medical qualifications, it's because we blast people with radiation, which basically kills every good cell in their body as well as maybe one or two bad cells, and most people die. Is why we don't have such a good survival rate. Maybe in other countries, maybe they look at naturopathic and homeopathic complementary medicines to go alongside some of the more big pharma type treatments for cancer. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Let's move to the Sunday Times front page. It's exactly 15 minutes past the hour. 11, of course, as I do this live, and it is the 1st of July today. Another scorcher here in the UK in general and Europe-wide as well. Sunday Times headline is, "Oust me if you dare, May warns Brexit bullies." Oust me if you dare, May warns Brexit bullies. Now, the Sunday Times is writing that Theresa May has told cabinet plotters that she won't be bullied out of office by her colleagues that are opposed to her Brexit plans. Right, these are the hardcore Brexiteers. Now, May is taking her entire cabinet to Chequers next Friday. That'll be a barrel of laughs, I suppose. And what they're going to do next Friday is they're going to thrash out a white paper to present to the European Union. Basically, thrashing out exactly what we want from the negotiations and what deal we want, even though there's only weeks left before it all goes basically belly up. May hopes that when this white paper is released, that the European Union will say, lovely, that's great, let's shake hands. But May has Brexiteers like David Davis, Liam Fox, Bojo the Clown, who allegedly won't accept, at least that's what they're saying. They're saying now that they won't accept membership of the customs union, membership of the single market, and they won't accept continued freedom of movement. That's what they say, the Brexiteers. And May, herself and Philip Hammond, and basically the rest of the cabinet are Remainers anyway, and don't want to leave. And as I reported last week, May was in Brussels on her knees, begging the European Union to give some ground. But the European Union is running the clock down. Of course, it wants to destroy the whole process. We're not going anywhere. And as I reported last Thursday, cross-party members of Parliament want Article 50 extended, delay by however long it takes to give us all more chance of a deal, is what they say. We ain't leaving. Now, Tim Stanley writes for the Telegraph newspaper. He was on the BBC this morning and he had this to say about Theresa May.
Time is running out between the Chequers meeting next Friday and the final meeting in Europe in October, when the final deal is supposed to be put on the table to the Europeans. Time is very, very slim. If you take out the Brussels summer holidays, there's actually only 6 weeks worth of negotiating left. And the government hasn't actually told the world what it wants this final deal to look like. Why? Well, one theory is the government doesn't know, which is why it's having this cabinet meeting, because Theresa May has no idea and she's going to ask the cabinet, you guys tell me what you want and we'll take some kind of compromise to the Europeans. An alternative theory, which Adam Bolton's sort of playing with here, is that actually the Prime Minister is using time. She's letting the clock run out so that her cabinet are forced to accept what she wants, and that eventually the Europeans, who are also starting to worry about business, the impact on business, they're starting to prepare for a no-deal situation, which no one really wants. So maybe she is actually using time. Remember, Theresa May always said that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. So it's possible the last 2 years, all this debate about budget and numbers, maybe actually she's got a card up her sleeve she's going to start playing in the next few weeks.
I know Tim Stanley. He used to come on my radio shows in Spain. Nice man and a good writer, but he's talking bollocks here. He simply is. It's all over. The European Union have been saying no to everything proposed by the United Kingdom. They've obfuscated, they've made negotiations practically impossible to allow this time to run down, to allow Parliament to take over from May, saying that we can't tolerate a no-deal Brexit, when a no-deal Brexit would be the best thing for the country. So Tim is wrong, but he's a Brexiteer. He wants us to leave. He's clinging on to any straws he can cling on to. May is going to come out of that meeting in Chequers next Friday night or Saturday morning, and she's going to give the European Union what it wants. Either associate membership with everything on the table, free movement and all the rest of it, or ultimately she's going to come out and say she can't reach a consensus with her own cabinet. That's what's going to happen. Now, Andrew Marr, we're not going to spend too much time on Brexit. Just I want you to hear one clip. We're going to talk gender identity. We're going to talk diversity at the BBC in a minute, in a story you just won't believe. But before we get there, Andrew Marr spoke with the Housing Secretary James Brokenshire this morning. Now, he'll be at that meeting at Chequers with May. Andrew Marr suggests that the European Union and May want a form of single market membership, a single market membership of sorts.
We both know that what they really want out of this is a single market for goods. Are they going to get it?
Well, we don't believe in being part of the single market. That's what we will leave.
Our single market for goods.
But the point is that if you have the single market with all of the issues that brings with it in terms of freedom of movement, that is precisely what we are leaving. And the Prime Minister being very clear on getting back on control of our laws and our migration.
I dropped the definite pronoun. I said a single market on goods. Is that a goer?
Well, no, but the single
market, a single market.
But the point is that if you talk about the single market, you are talking about those other issues too. What we're talking about is an ambitious free trade agreement with our European partners, with that lack of flexibility to ensure that we don't see a hard border in Northern Ireland, that we ensure that we are able to trade internationally, and indeed that we have that frictionless trade the Prime Minister has spoken about.
But this is exactly why so many people get frustrated. I say us single market, you say the, and you get very, very much tangled up in the words. Mr. Danny Dyer said the following this week.
Jesus Christ, he's asking him about Danny Dyer now.
He's got an effing clue what Brexit is. No one knows what it is. It's like a mad riddle. What is your message to Danny Dyer this morning?
Well, I'm
that brilliant socio-economic commentator, Danny Dyer. Let's put Danny Dyer's ramblings to a Secretary of State on national television. That's what you pay your TV licence for. That fucking bollocks there. Hey, Danny Dyer said this, Secretary. What you reckon? Who the fuck is Danny Dyer? Let's move on. And of course, all he does is waffle on, Brokenshire. Waffle on, waffle on, waffle on. There'll be no deal. There'll be no Brexit. Right, let's leave Brexit alone. 22 minutes past the hour. Oh, I need some more water. Good morning, Jackie in Australia. Well, it's good evening, Jackie in Australia. Hope you're well, Jackie. Good morning to David Kona, by the way, who read Dean and Jill Henderson's book, Illuminati Agenda 21, and recommends it heartily. Dean and Jill were on the programme talking about it recently as well. Good morning to Fair Dinkum, to Tommy, to Cartoon Drunk. And Dean Smith tweets this. Richie, snoring should be treated. The occasional times I snore at night, I just about wake up suffocating with my face in a pillow, with my wife pushing down forcefully. Snoring surgery saves lives. I can vouch for it, says Dean. It sounds like, Dean, you have sleep apnea, which a lot of people have. It used to be believed at one time that sleep apnea was mainly suffered by people who were maybe overweight, but it's not the case. A lot of people have it. It's when you actually stop breathing when you're snoring, and the lack of breathing causes you to wake up, but not really wake up, semi-wake up, and then go back to sleep. Sleep apnea, it weakens the heart. I read a lot about it. David Stanford tweets, carpal tunnel surgery? Carpal tunnel surgery doesn't work, he says. A lot of people who've had the surgery would disagree with you, David. In fact, I know somebody who's had the surgery and it was very helpful for them. But anyway, he says it only ever surfaced after the introduction of sugary beverages, soft drinks, just like there was only 11 recorded cases of autism before you know what. Right. Fair enough. We'll move on. Susan, thanks for tweeting the article. NHS spends £9 million on sex swap ops and demand is still high. £9 million while they're cutting other surgeries there. Let's scroll on up. Right, okay, good morning to Mwinga. Very quick break. When we come back, moving away from Brexit, and we're going to talk about what when we come back? We've still got a few papers to look at, don't we? Don't we? Yes, we're going to stay with the Sunday Times and a story about schoolgirls that you don't want to miss. Back in 2 minutes.
There's a place high in the mountains of Spain, a sanctuary where souls gather from all around the globe to learn about themselves and experience powerful changes in the way we see our world. they become awakened to their gifts and their power to heal others. Become part of this ever-growing worldwide family of unique, pure energy healing practitioners. Discover how amazing you truly are. Go to www.markbayerski.com. It could just change your life forever. Forever.
Have you lost access to important data from a computer hard drive, mobile phone, or other storage device? Maybe you have a broken hard drive containing years of information, or a smartphone that no longer works from which you'd like the pictures, movies, and chats recovered. If you would like to recover data from any type of digital device, including desktop and laptop computers, external hard drives, cameras, smartphones, NAS, and RAID servers, then contact Data Clinic today at dataclinic.co.uk now.
Introducing the H2O app, a powerful water structuring application that programs vibrational energies into water through the use of different sound frequencies. Once programmed, the use of water for drinking, cooking, bathing. Give it to your friends and colleagues or spread it around the garden. The list goes on. It's not just water that the app can be used for either. It's great for programming crystals too. The H2O app is free to download and is available on both Android and Apple platforms. For further information, go to h2oapp.online.
The Richie Allen Show relies on your support. Go to richieallen.co.uk and set up a monthly donation today.
Right, welcome back then. It's 26 minutes past 11 as this is live. You might be hearing the podcast a bit later on. It is Sunday View. Looking through the Sunday papers. We just did the front page of the Sunday Times. Also on the front page of the Sunday Times. By the way, in a few minutes we'll be talking about why the BBC needs more lesbians. We'll be talking about that shortly. Also on the front page of the Sunday Times, schoolgirls face ban on skirts. For schoolgirls, the skirt is on the way out. An analysis of the uniform policies of schools in England shows that at least 40 secondaries have stopped girls from wearing them, while others are consulting on a ban. The change to trousers comes as schools opt for gender-neutral uniforms to cater for transgender pupils. Priory School in Lewis, East Sussex, which banned skirts last year, said pupils had questioned why its uniform was different for boys and girls, and that the needs of transgender students must be taken into account. Crawshaw Academy near Leeds is consulting on implementing a gender-neutral uniform, which would be trousers only. Lovely, isn't it? Andrew Doyle is a comedian. We heard from him last week on Sunday View. He was on Sky News this morning reviewing the newspapers on skirts being banned. What did Andrew Doyle have to say?
Apparently, at least 40 secondary schools are stopping girls from wearing skirts. And the idea is that the schools are adopting gender-neutral uniforms. So everyone's going to be wearing trousers. I'm not sure that this is a good idea. I like the idea that girls and boys could wear whatever they want to wear. I'm not sure that this is helpful. But I think also the policy points to this broader question, which is it does seem to be based on the idea that gender difference is a problem that needs to be fixed, or at least that's the way it's being perceived. And I'm not sure that's right. I think there's something very wonderful about gender difference, not just in terms of culture and tradition, but also in terms of art and literature. There's also something really great about transgressing gender boundaries, and I think all of that is being washed away by this idea that gender's an essentially negative thing.
Do you think we as a society are overthinking things?
I think the school are definitely overthinking it. Like, they clearly want to make their transgender and gender fluid pupils feel welcome and accepted there, which is a very positive thing, but it's all about choice, isn't it? I mean, there were some schools anyway where the girls had to wear skirts and weren't allowed to wear trousers. I just let people wear what they want. Let boys wear skirts. Let boys wear shorts in this weather as well.
And in fact, an issue when it comes to being more liberal, surely it's about having fewer rules and just letting kids wear what they want, rather than imposing more rules.
A lot of it is well-intentioned, isn't it? Like this idea of about inclusivity and the rest of it. But I'm just not convinced that it's actually all that helpful. And I mean, if you take an example like a young girl, say, who might be what we used to call a tomboy, who likes to wear traditionally masculine things and play masculine games and all the rest of it. Well, now the instinct would be, OK, well, let's make sure everyone's wearing gender. Let's neutralise gender so that they feel comfortable in themselves. Or maybe the pupil should be encouraged to transition or whatever. This is based on a very conservative idea. What's wrong with a girl wearing a boy's clothes or behaving more in a traditionally masculine way?
Or a boy wearing a skirt if he wants to.
Right. So what's wrong wrong with that?
I don't think you can liberalise anyone by restricting choice.
That was Rachel Cunliffe there weighing in. She's a City AM editor. It's a tabloid, isn't it? It's part of it. It might be in the Daily Mirror. I could be wrong. Rachel Cunliffe. And before that, you heard Andrew Doyle, the comedian. We'll hear a bit more from Rachel Cunliffe a little bit later on. Another very interesting story on this theme. That's the Sunday Times. We will return to that. Look, all that needs to be said by the likes of me on the lunacy of these policies in schools has already been said. There's no point in me ranting on and on and on about it. It's insane. This is why we would never put a child into a primary school or a secondary school in this country. If we are blessed with children, I will be homeschooling our children. It's as simple as that. This is lunacy. And of course, we use throwaway terms like lunacy. It's far more sinister than just lunacy. There is a method to this madness. The eradication of gender is the method, is the desired result of the methodology of this madness. That's where they want to be, the eradication of gender. And why more parents are not going into schools and pulling head teachers out by their ears and screaming at them, you're not doing this. Do you understand? You're not doing it. If my daughter wants to wear a skirt, sensible skirt, down past the knee, as schoolgirls have worn for millennia. If she wants to wear a skirt, she'll wear a skirt. What's going on here? Is there any parents actually going to these buffoons and saying to them, listen, no. What are you going to do when she turns up in a skirt? Say she can't come in? It's madness, this. Anyway, we'll come back to that in a minute, in another way. The Sunday Mirror, front page, Wills. Wills means Prince William. Wills. Middle East peace is my life mission. Fuck off. Nonsense. The Sunday Mirror says William wants to make it his lifelong mission to bring a just and lasting peace to the Middle East. What a load of bollocks. More nonsense. The Sunday Observer, front page, prepared to groan. Tory education revolution has fueled inequality in our schools. Sweeping education reforms appear to be fueling inequality in the school system, according to a major analysis that shows high-performing and improving schools are accepting fewer children from poor backgrounds, right? You know all about that, so I'm not going to get into it. It's in the Sunday Observer, progressive newspaper, The Guardian and the Observer. And here's one. This is in the Sunday Telegraph. This is important as well. Universities warned of creeping segregation as Sheffield launches LGBT-only student halls. Universities warned of creeping segregation as Sheffield launches LGBT-only student halls. Universities have been warned of a creeping segregation on campus after Sheffield became the first in the country to open student housing where only gay and transgender students are allowed to live. Sheffield University says it will open a set of LGBT-only student flats in September to provide a safe space for students to be themselves. The university has received 30 applications so far and plans to expand the accommodation next year beyond the 12 rooms currently offered. Little safe haven for 12 gay and lesbian people so they don't have to see anybody else. Isn't it lovely? The paper writes, the Sunday Telegraph goes on to say, it follows concerns from the student union, which is full of hysterical little bollockses like Owen Jones. The student union is concerned that gay and transgender students will be subject to bullying and harassment in mainstream accommodation. What bollocks! It's untrue. There's no evidence of it. None whatsoever evidence that in student halls, and I know because I know people who work at universities in this city, there's no evidence that gay people are harassed. None. Sheffield is going to open halls where only gay and lesbian and transgender people can go. Brilliant. Here's Rachel Cunliffe. Again, she's a City AM editor. She nails it.
This is the University of Sheffield, which has become the first university to have LGBT segregated housing. They've got student flats that are only for gay and transgender students, and they're hoping it will provide a safe space for students to be themselves. And I was horrified by this because I think feeling safe and feeling secure and accepted at university is really important. It's where a lot of people first sort of discover themselves and come out and feel like they can come out. But the reason they've done this is because the LGBT students are worried about harassment and bullying, which are really important issues, and rather than try and fix those, they're segregating them. I mean, how would we feel if we had straight-only
it's such a terrible idea, and it's so regressive. It's taken us right. Any form of segregation. But I think this is the end point of identity politics.
Can you not use the same argument for women's only halls of residence, though?
I actually...
Because they do exist.
I'm quite against women halls of residence as well. I think when there are genuine safety issues and concerns, you've got to listen to the students and what it is that they want. But you also have to fix the underlying problems as to why people feel unsafe.
But also, if gay people are feeling harassed, I feel that there's a kind of paternalistic idea here that, you know, gay people, they need our special protection. Actually, I think that's really patronising. I think we can look after ourselves, actually.
I also think it feels extremely aggressive in 2018 that this is even being talked about.
But it is moving this way because
they've got racial segregation as well.
Yes, racial segregation as well.
Not formally, but the idea that this is the Chinese only housing. Like, this is 2018.
But this is where we are. I mean, identity politics pushes this. It says we all need to be divided up. Stay in your lane is the phrase I keep hearing on Twitter. You know, you should just be with your own kind. I think it's really backward thinking and totally illiberal.
Yeah, it's good stuff by both of them there. The comedian Andrew Doyle, but first of all, Rachel Cunliffe. Now, are you coming across that on Twitter? I've never heard that. Stay in your lane. I know what it means, obviously, but I've never come across it. Are these snowflake, narcissistic, progressive fuckwits now, are they actually saying that? Stay in your lane? Really? Gay people, just hang out with gay people to be safe? Really? Black people, don't hang out with anybody except black people because all white people are racist. Or most of them are. Anyway, is that what they're being told, really? Stay in your lane? Jesus, if it's happening. Sean McDonald tweets, Richie, why not make gender-neutral school uniforms into a bright orange jumpsuit with matching cuffs? It's a sentence anyway, in my opinion, says Sean. Yes, mate, you might as well. I concur. Good morning to Susan. Good morning, Susan. Like that profile pic there, Susan. You're like a bit of a Jedi Knight there with that hood on. Yeah, I like it. Jedis. Are we going to start protecting Jedis now? People who say they're Jedi Knights, that you can't abuse them. You can't slate them, you know. Susan tweets, oh my God, there's hets in my uni. Quick run, they might abuse or shag you. Heterosexuals, of course. Yeah, that's where it ends up going, you know. Dean tweets, Sheffield is a leader in becoming the first 5G smart city and now an LGBT town. Like a Chinatown, Sheffield is going mad. Anyone want to buy my house? Because I'm moving, says Dean. Yeah. 22 minutes to midday, scorching hot. Manchester, the great city itself. Right, let's move on. Christ, do you want to hear what... This is... You see these students' unions. There's a guy called Simon Thompson. No, hang on. I was about to do him a great disservice. Simon Thompson is one of the good guys. He's been very critical of this. LGBT-only flats in Sheffield Uni. So he's written for The Telegraph, he's written universities about opening your horizons and meeting people from different cultures, backgrounds, sexualities, everything, he said. I think it's a disadvantage if people close themselves off and don't socialise with straight people. It just seems madness to me. Good man. And he went on to say that he's already concerned about racial segregation on campus, with a number of student housing blocks in Manchester, London and Liverpool becoming known informally as Chinese only. Is that true? In this city, in Manchester, there are student housing blocks where it's Chinese only, really? Where Chinese students live entirely separate lives to their white British classmates? Wow. And this guy Thompson said Sheffield's plan will go even further by enacting an explicit ban on heterosexual students and will ultimately further fuel student segregation. LGBT people are vulnerable. They need protecting, so let's let them live on their own. Now, I had a fantastic conversation with Dr. Stuart Waiton on Wednesday. He's a criminologist and he's based at Abertay University in Dundee. Very smart man. And I asked him in the conversation, I'm going to play just a little bit of it. I asked him in the conversation on Wednesday, where's all this coming from? This is not the way the left used to be. The left never behaved like this back in my day. And this is true, by the way. This is a recent phenomenon. And he talked to me about the creation or the construction by the state of something called vulnerable groups. This is excellent stuff, this. This guy is cutting edge.
Essentially what has happened is we've constructed this idea that if you're black or if you're gay or if you're a woman or if you're disabled and so on, you are part of a vulnerable group, or what they now call a protected characteristic. And then the law steps in, because if you're vulnerable, you need more protection, and you need protection from being offended, apparently. And so on it goes. And so we have this kind of radical, essentially there's no one, the people that in the past would have said, wait a minute, we don't want more policing, we don't want more clampdowns, we don't want more people being criminalised. That's what people on the left always argued against the reactionary right. Suddenly they were the ones campaigning to have more laws, more forms of policing, more regulations, more bans, and so on. And I think it's partly because of this, their collapse of their wider political ambitions, if you like. So they became increasingly narrow and focused on language. And then we had this development of this idea of vulnerability, that these people are vulnerable and need to be protected, which is fascinating because it's a complete caricature. If someone said all black people are stupid, you would realise them as a reactionary. But when we say all black people are vulnerable, we get a pat on the head for that. But it's completely patronising as far as I can see.
Brilliant stuff, Stuart Waite, and he's writing a book called The Criminalisation of Everything. When that book is put to bed and published, we'll certainly invite him back on the programme. If you missed that interview, it's on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Richie Allen Show. /Richie Allen Show. It's not the Richie Allen Show. /Richie Allen Show. That entire 32-minute conversation with him about where this is all going is there. And he was brilliant on Wednesday. Really enjoyed listening to him. What are we? 18 minutes to midday. Wow. It's warm. 26 degrees. It is. Good morning to Moinga. Good morning to Deborah. And I had a tweet there from somebody called @TruthSite who says, Richie, it's another way of creating conflicts and differences where there are none. That's exactly right. Exactly right. Who runs around universities shouting at gay and lesbian people? You see, when the rugby player, Gareth Thomas, the Welsh rugby legend, who came out, I think the first ever top rugby union star to come out as gay, fair play to him. He's spoken eloquently about that and the difficulties he faced when he felt he had to keep it hidden. No issues with any of that. Good luck to Gareth Thomas. I enjoyed watching him play rugby when he plays. A very good player. But he wants to criminalise people shouting homophobic things at football matches. And yet, when he was explaining this to Sky News, he conceded that you don't see this in society. People don't run up to people in the street and shout anti-gay stuff at them. So why should they do it in football stadiums? But he should have stopped at the part where he said people don't run up to shout things at people in the street. Exactly! They don't! There's no problem. And if a bunch of drunk muppets at football want to get under the skin of a player and abuse him or her because they want to get under their skin, they want to rattle them, most of the times the players can't hear it anyway in a crowd of 25, 40, 50, 60,000. Who cares? Every study in the world has shown that these guys are not homophobic. They're just fucking idiots at football. Right? We've all had to sit next to one of these dopes. What are you going to do, arrest them? But that's what they want. It's insane. And they even concede themselves, the activists, like Gareth Thomas. It doesn't happen in the street, so why should it happen in football? Fucking hell. You've answered your own question. Anyway, I get a bit passionate about that. I'm no virtue signaler, but if I'm out and about with my missus and there's a gay couple in our vicinity and somebody starts giving him shit, I'm going to knock him out, the guy. If the gay couple don't do it, I'm going to say fuck off and leave those people alone. Once. I'm not going to tell you a second time. It doesn't happen. Why? Because people are fundamentally decent. People are fundamentally decent. You're out and about, some drunk guy starts pointing at two gay guys together. It doesn't happen. Because if it did happen, 2 or 3 people would say, leave them alone. Right. Oh, Christ. Prepare yourselves for this. I didn't know, when I saw this morning on the Mail on Sunday, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So I laughed. The Mail on Sunday's headline, front page, it's brilliant. BBC chief stunned by secret staff sex survey. BBC chief stunned by secret staff sex survey. When I read the headline, I was delighted. I thought that there was orgies going on at the BBC. I thought it's brilliant. Everybody's shagging everybody. No. The headline is a false headline. It should say secret staff gender survey. BBC chief stunned by secret staff gender survey is what it should say. But the Mail likes a bit of sensationalism. Listen to this, you won't believe it. The BBC has more than 400 transgender staff, a confidential internal survey has revealed. Not so confidential now. The Mail on Sunday got a copy of it. The figure represents more than 1 in 50 of the workforce. Imagine that. 1 in 50 BBC employees is transgender. And it's about 4 times higher than the proportion in the population at large. Why? We'll get to that in a minute. And it stunned the BBC executive behind the research, who described the total number of trans employees at 417. And he said that's very, very high. Now, I hope I don't mispronounce this gentleman's name. The BBC's Director of Diversity is a man called Tunde Ogungbasan. Ogungbesan. Yeah, Ogungbasan. Tunde Ogungbasan. So he's the BBC's Director of Diversity. And he's launched a major reform to make the corporation more trans-friendly following these findings. So basically, yes, we've loads of transgendered folk because of our ridiculous positive discrimination diversity policies. So now let's turn this place into a fucking trans heaven. No, I don't know what that would look like, a trans heaven. No idea whatsoever. But they're going to try and make the BBC more trans-friendly. The Mail on Sunday writes, the issue of trans rights has divided Britain. You love these sensational articles, don't you? Trans rights has divided Britain. The whole country is talking about it. With a split between traditionalists who believe gender is assigned at birth and progressives who believe a liberal society should make strides against any form of discrimination towards trans people. Using personal information about BBC staff that only a couple of people would ever know, Mr. Ogungbasan also revealed that 11% of BBC employees were lesbian, gay, bisexual or transgender. 11%. But he said he did not regard the BBC as diverse enough, claiming more lesbians are needed. You can never have enough muff divers at the BBC. Caroline bet me I wouldn't say muff divers on radio. I did. I don't mean to be derogatory towards lesbian women. He said the BBC is not diverse enough. More lesbians are needed. He actually said that. I had to read it back 16 times. Then I read it the 17th. Then I walked away from the newspaper and I walked around and I came back and I looked at it again. Yes, we need more lesbians. BBC is failing. We're failing in our diversity policies. Why? Because we don't have enough lesbians. Fucking hell. Mr. Ogungbasan revealed his findings at a conference attended by senior civil servants, doctors and transgender rights campaigners earlier last month. And he was chuffed to bits that there are 417 trans people at the BBC. Chuffed. He loved it. Thrilled. He said, we're on a journey at the BBC. We're on a journey. We can create a culture where everybody feels they can bring their best work into the organisation and be who you are. We're creating a journey. Sounds very much like Owen Jones. Everybody should go on a journey. Anyway, Martina Navratilova was on the Andrew Marr show. I feel like this is some sort of fucking weird time zone warp that I've accidentally stumbled into. All this is going on and Martina Navratilova is talking politics on the Andrew Marr show. Am I being a bit, not sexist, am I being a bit sportist? Am I saying that sporty people don't know anything about politics? Yeah, I am. Fuck it, I am. She certainly knows nothing anyway. She was on the Andrew Marr show. Bit of diversity there, I suppose you could say, having Martina. And she was thrilled to hear about the BBC.
The headline is sex survey, but it was actually gender survey. And it came out that at the BBC, they thought maybe they had a couple dozen transgender people on their staff. It turns out it's 417 people at the BBC. So the diversity within the BBC, I think, is fantastic.
It's fantastic.
That we don't have enough of this or that.
The BBC is very much an urban metropolitan organisation.
Leading
of
the
course,
way
it doesn't
on
necessarily
diversity.
represent the entire country, but that's a very interesting story. Okay, let's move on.
Let's move on. Do you know, I would have had some respect for Mar if he had said that last bit through gritted teeth for the lads. You know, the BBC is a very urban metrosexual organisation. He didn't even have the decency to say it through gritted teeth, Andrew Marr. They have a diversity manager, and he actually said, we need more lesbians. This is where we're going, the madness of it. I wonder in the future, will white men and women be a protected group? Will we eventually become a rare species? Will we become a threatened species to the point where we become protected by the LGBT, CBDB, AFBC, whatever the fuck, in 20 or 30 years' time? Will we be getting all the jobs then? It'll be too late for me. I'll be an old man then, but maybe our grandchildren will love this. So have plenty of white grandchildren and Christians, because in a few years' time, they'll be protected and they'll get all the jobs and it'll just be brilliant. The world is mad. Oh, Christ. It must be the heat. I'm being told that muff divers might signal the end of my career. It won't, you see, because I'm only responsible for myself. At the moment, anyway, until Ofcom says, which they will say, that I must have a license to broadcast. That's coming. But at the moment, I don't, and I can say whatever I want. And I don't do it for effect. I just like to say whatever I want, whatever comes into my head. The muff divers was planned. It was planned. I mentioned it and I was told, you'll never say that. Don't say that to me. Of course I will. It's just brilliant, eh? You know? And when people listen to this stuff, they don't hear what people like me are saying. The automatic conclusion, the easy conclusion to draw is this guy's fairly intolerant. You know, listening to him, I've had this said to me, listening to him, if you're white and you look like him, you know, and you're straight, well, you're okay. It's not the case at all. It couldn't be further from the truth. Never. You couldn't meet a more live and let live guy than me. Absolutely. You believe you were born in the wrong body and you believe that you're a man when in fact you were born a woman. You can believe whatever you want. I'm not going to mock you. I'm not going to ridicule you. I'm not going to insult you or demean you. I'm just not going to agree with you. But then I'm going to mind my own fucking business. Because it's none of my business. None. It only becomes my business when you get this lunacy. And even then, is it my business? I don't work at the BBC. But yeah, it is my business. You've got to talk about it. You've got to say, look, what's going on here? This ain't good. You know, it's not good. We need more lesbians. Oh, what sort of fucking lunacy is that? You know what I mean? Oh, there was a time when I was a teenager when I would have agreed with him. There's a time when I was a teenager I would have said, yeah, more lesbians. You can never have enough lesbians. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go right before I get myself into trouble. That was Sunday's Sunday View. I've not even lined up any music. I went off on such a tangent there. There was another good story. By the way, Tino. We must set up an interview, Tino. There's a great story in the Sunday Telegraph, the Sunday Express today about UFOs. The headline is Operation UFO, Britain's race to beat Russia to alien weapons revealed in secret files. To my friends Tino and Gary Heseltine and others, this won't be news to them, but to a lot of our listeners it probably will be. Interesting story about British spies trying to capture alien technology way back in the day. Might get into it this week on the RA show, if I can. I think I might do that. What else is there to tell you? There's a few other things came in as well while I was on air. Where are we? Neil Gardner. Good morning, Neil. Spirit Samba has been tweeting as well. Neil says he sent me a link to an article. The article is headed 20-year-old Norwegian. I was born the wrong species. I'm a cat. But that looks to me like a parody site. Is it? Is that a comedy site? Ah, it is, yeah. It's not true. Lifesitenews.com. It's not actually true, is it? No. But you know, we're probably going down that road. But again, you know, if somebody wants to believe that they're a Jedi Knight, for example, or they want to believe they're a cat, or they want to believe they're a dog. Let them believe whatever they want. So long as they don't say, you know, you've got to now amend society to cater for me. But I'm going to say this for the last time, and I mean it for the last time. I know 2 transgender men and women in the city, and I'm connected to 2 trans folk through social media who have been following this show since we started this show. And these are people I like a lot. I couldn't give a shit what their sexuality is or what they believe. But they ask me to constantly remind this audience the agenda is not being driven by trans men and women or by gay and lesbian men and women. It isn't. Read Andrew Pearce, the journalist in the Daily Mail, gay man himself. Listen to Peter Tatchell, who disagrees with this madness. It's not being driven by gay, lesbian, transgender folk. It isn't. And they feel annoyed because when we talk about it and we get into it in the way that we do on this program, often, I don't know how many trans listeners we have. You could probably maybe count it on one hand. I don't know, maybe more. But they say you make it sound sometimes like it's us, Richie. I actually go out of my way to not make it sound like it's you, because it isn't you. It's obvious it isn't you. These primary schools saying gender neutral uniforms. I know the trans folk have nothing to do with that, because we've had trans people get onto the programme. You know, Stephanie Doyle was on before. Great person, Stephanie. I know Stephanie will be listening to this. She'll be laughing now. Great person. She's a great person. Great guy, Stephanie. I think Stephanie's a trans female. Trans male, excuse me. Trans male. Maybe Stephanie will get back to me and say, Richie, you're wrong. I'm not this or I'm not that. But anyway, we've had people on and they've absolutely said this is not our agenda. And I believe that because it comes from somewhere else. And we talked about the desired result of it. Right, I better get out. That's it for Sunday View. Thanks for bearing with it. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. It's beautiful out there. Get some sun. It's good for you, despite what they tell you about skin cancer. Sun is good. Don't get burned. That's not nice. But get some sun on your face. It won't do you any harm at all. I'll be back with you tomorrow, Monday at 7 p.m. UK time. I'm dreading the week. I love speaking with you, but I'm dreading it because the weather is going to be the same this coming week as it was last week, and it's horrendous in the studio, but I'll get through it somehow. And we've lined up 1 or 2 good guests for you already. I won't tell you who they are just yet, but got some good guests coming up next week. Going to leave you with some Bruce the Boss Springsteen. This is a song called This Life that he wrote about his beautiful wife, and describing your love for somebody doesn't get any more poetic or more wonderful than this. Bruce Springsteen closing out Sunday View. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.